So let's close out day 2 and welcome to the stage Chloe Ramirez.
Aw, thanks, Mike. What an intro. I'm feeling nice. Well, let's get into it. My name is Chloe Ramirez, and I have been photographing love and connection for over 15 years now. And I can say with 100% certainty that I am a complete nerd about photographing love. I love love. It's like, is it Buddy the Elf? And he's like, I'm in love and I don't care who knows it. That's me. I love it. And before I fell in love with photographing love, that's a mouthful, is I wanted to be a rock star. And you're welcome, WPPI. This is me at 17. And I really did feel like I was going to be a rock star. See, I was born to 2 extremely creative people. My mom was an amazing painter, and my dad was an amazing musician. And so there was no escaping creativity. It was like baked into my actual DNA. And I was obnoxious about singing. I was singing in the car, I was singing in the shower, I was singing on the couch, I was singing while my mom was on the phone. They were completely annoyed by me. Even my creative parents were completely annoyed by me. So they put me in voice lessons, and they fostered this love, and they helped me grow. And by the time I got to high school, I was in musical theater. I was in a local rock band. I thought it was so cool. But there was something that was just missing. I felt like I just didn't have that thing that some musicians had that I didn't. See, when I sang, it came out very clear. And I just really wanted a voice that had some character to it, like Janis Joplin or Billie Holiday, something you can like really sink your teeth into. And I didn't, because I had been trained to sing the correct way. I had been trained my whole life. This is how you do it. This is how you sing. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. If anything, I was doing all the right things. But there was just something missing. So we need to know the rules, and then we need to know when to break them, right? And this is something we've heard a million times, so it's something you hear and you're just like, I can't hear that anymore. But I'm going to tell you a story. So when I first started in photography, I had a very mean teacher, to put it completely blunt. And on the flip side, she taught me everything I knew about composition, lighting, and just really how to take a lens and make it what you want. And because of that, I had her voice echoing in my head when I would come to my professional shoots. And because of that, my work started to feel a little sterile, a little clinical. And I would look at these photos, and I'm like, I don't know what's missing. It was the same thing as when I was a teenager. But at the same time, simultaneously, I was taking photos like this of my kids. This is by no means a technically perfect image, but when I look at it, I feel warmth, I feel connection, I feel love. I see my 2 daughters just reading a book by a fire. I was taking photos like this. Now, my daughter's a teenager now, but when this photo was taken, she was painfully shy. And I mean painfully shy. She would see a man. She didn't like men. I don't know why. She would lift her hand to her face and bury her head into me. So seeing a photo of my shy daughter like this, hair blowing in the wind, is this a technically perfect image? No, but man, I can sink my teeth into this. Or an image like this of my daughter. Again, same little shy one. And to let her know that I'm not making her say cheese or stand a certain way, that all emotions are beautiful and represented. The very thing that I was missing in my entire creative career since I was in diapers was love. But not just love for the subject or for the craft, it was love for myself, because that voice that was once my mean teacher, that started to sound awful lot like Chloe after a while. And I was that inner dialogue telling myself that I wasn't good enough, or telling myself that it wasn't technically perfect. So you need to know the rules, and you need to know when to break them. So this is where the heart comes in. You need to create an environment that fosters connection. It is easy to foster connection with your kids. Man, I loved those kids the second I held them in my arms. It was undeniable, just love. But for clients, I may have just pulled up in my car, take out my camera, and I don't know them at all, right? Or maybe we talked on the phone and you kind of have an idea of who they are. So this would be a very short talk if I was like, the secret is love. And that would be awful. And I would never do that to you. But we need to figure out a system, right, on how we can replicate that feeling in our photos. So the very first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to take a deep breath when you're at your shoot, and I want you to slow down your pace. It is easier said than done. Show of hands, who here feels like if they don't move from pose to pose to pose to pose to idea to idea to idea, that you're going to be found out and they're going to know you're a fraud? Yeah, I see you. And I don't know why we do this as creatives, because art is not made in a hurry, right? We don't go to a nice restaurant and expect it to be at our table in 5 seconds. No, we know it's going to take time. We know they're back there doing their thing, doing their process. And it's the same thing with art. We need to give it some breathing room to expand and grow and let that character seep in. So this, I put this slide in here because this couple really, really stood out to me. We had a 2-hour shoot, which is not typical. I typically do 1-hour shoots, but they really wanted two distinct looks. So the first half of the day, we were like frolicking around, having fun. And for this one, they wanted to hike up to their hill, have takeout sushi, and get photographed in the sunshine. Now, when we hiked up the hill, it was still pretty high. And if anybody has tried to photograph at sunset on a hill, you know you gotta wait. You gotta wait for that timing, or you're just gonna have a bunch of throwaway shots that you don't need. And so during that time, they shared their sushi with me, which was so nice. And we just sat and talked. And we talked about our hopes and our dreams and their future kids. And she was making a career pivot. And she had been planning to be a doctor. And man, it didn't feel like it was inspiring her anymore. And hearing those words made me fall in love with them. That little piece right there is what I needed to be the photographer for them. I need that connection for me to be a proper photographer for them. And we just frolicked around and enjoyed ourselves. And this image right here, girls, we don't like wind. We don't like wind in our hair. I mean, it's a nice thought, right? Until it's like up your nose, in your teeth, you're sucking it in and inhaling it. It's not fun. So if I had done this photo at the beginning of the day, she would have been like, oh, this girl is, oh, she does not have my best interest at heart. But we're at the end of the session, and I have like molded them like clay, right? I could get them to do anything at this point. And I said, you know, girl, I know you feel crazy right now, but I just want you to brush her hair out of your face and just go with it, okay? Just go with it. And I have my 85 millimeter. Actually, that might have been the 70 to 200. I like a little compression in my images, so I was standing pretty far back. And I'm shouting at them, right? I'm like, you guys are doing amazing. This is incredible. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And I'm just building up that confidence. She feels completely dumb. But she's smiling through it because she's like, I trust Chloe. Another thing that we need to do to foster connection, to assert ourselves as the expert at our session, is we need to think like a director. So what do directors do, right? They're thinking about lighting. They're thinking about composition. They're thinking about, did that person eat? Did this person? I need to inspire this one. They're not quite doing it exactly here. Okay, the lighting is changing. We need to get this light in here. That is what's going on in our brains, right? Not an easy job. People say, oh, you photograph love. Well, yeah, it's actually kind of hard, guys. This couple I photographed this year, they actually work in the film industry, which is kind of a cool thing to say, so they really did get the process. But what stood out to me for them is that they said in their intake form that they rent a bike at every place they travel to, which is something I've never done. I'm not renting bikes and going to parks and visiting things like that. But I thought that was so cool for them. And then she sent me over a mood board, and there was bikes included. I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. So we have them here. We got them backlit. We're doing a little shadow play. I'm still including the bike in the frame so that it carries on. You don't need it in every frame. We're doing it at a park. You can add some park elements in there. But I wanted that in the background because here we kind of have a weird pose here. I'm picturing them having a picnic, so I want the pose to fit the environment. So I'm having her lay back. She has a little tiny flower in her hand, and he's just laying on her. And without that, there might be just like a little too much negative space. But in the background, you see the black wheel, and then you see the white wheel. And I really like that played out because this was actually an engagement session. And I feel like that adds a little theme in there. And of course, we have them snuggling in here, which I love. This couple, completely different vibe. So I was doing a mentoring session in my hometown for 2 women. And I had secured this couple. They're actual couple, and they're gorgeous, undeniable, but they've never modeled in their lives. Perfect. That's exactly the kind of models I tend to shoot. And 2 days before, I get a text, and she says, I actually don't think we can make it. And I'm like, okay, got to find a couple off the streets, you know? And I asked her, I said, okay, is it like a conflict of schedule? What's going on? And she goes, he's just painfully shy. Like so painfully shy. I actually think he's gonna like vomit. He's not gonna wanna do this. And I said, if you can get him here, or if he wants to talk to me, I know he's painfully shy, but if you can get him here, I promise you it's not gonna be like any other photo shoot you've ever done. Like the confidence, right? I was like, hopefully. And he showed up, and this is what I did, okay? Because you're thinking like a director, right? How can we work with 2 different personalities, with one who's literally almost having a panic attack? Is I am going to direct the person that is the extrovert, right? Because what does that do? That takes the pressure off the introvert. Also, we're in a city. I changed directions. I'm not putting them on a busy street, because what would that do to the introvert? That would make them like, ugh, I'm being perceived. They don't want to be perceived by a million different people. So I gave them the space, I directed her, and that gave him the confidence. And by the end, look at him. He's like doing a cool little squat. He's over there like hugging his lady. And he said that he had never felt like he could model before, and that now he felt like he could do it in the future. And that to me is like the biggest compliment on earth. Another thing I want you to do is I want you to mirror the mood that you want to see in them. That's easier said than done, right? Okay, who's ever been in a conversation with someone and you're like really invested in this conversation and you find yourself matching everything they're doing, and you're shifting weight and you're like, whoa, I am actually mirroring exactly what they're doing. That is a very common thing. Humans, we love to mirror each other, and I think it's actually pretty sweet. So what you can do at a shoot is decide, okay, what energy do I want to bring? At the beginning of my shoot, I am always, if both couples are up for it, I want to get them out of their head and into the moment. And how do we do that, right? If I'm sitting there posing them in a very specific way, then I'm treating them like a mannequin. And when you treat someone like a mannequin, then it gets them thinking, okay, yeah, I actually don't know how to move my limbs. I need someone to help me. And the entire time, that's going to set you up for failure. The entire time, they're going to be looking to you for direction. They're going to be looking to you to show them how to move and show them how to love their partner. I don't know how to show them how to do that. But what I can do is I can get them doing a movement. And when you get them doing a movement like running, jumping, twirling, walking hand in hand if they're a more subtle couple, it doesn't have to be extreme, but when you get them moving, you get them out of their head and into the moment. And it builds this level of trust that is so lovely. And another thing, so I always start very high energy and then I move to the more intimate ones, because we're not weird, right? We're not going to ask people to like kiss and make out and we don't know them. That's strange. Don't be a weirdo. But we're going to ask them to laugh with us and bond with us, and then that trust builds, and then we can get them into this position where we get a little more intimate like this. And for this, all I have to do is lower my voice and mirror exactly what I want from them. And what that does is it causes people's energies to drop a little bit and lean into what you're saying. And this is when surrender happens. And that might sound like kind of a strange word to say when you're working with people, but I'm telling you guys, when you hit, some people call it like a flow state, when you hit a flow state or a surrender with your couple, oh man, that is when the magic happens. And that is when the shoot really begins for me. And so just doing these small things to prep them in advance, to get them to this state of surrender, I would never be able to take an image like this in the first 5 minutes. Never. But because we're at the end of our session and we're in our flow state and they trust me, now I can get them to do pretty much whatever I want. So for this, I really wanted to play up the juxtaposition of emotions between these two people. He is more calm and subdued, and she is quite literally a rock star, like my old dream. So I thought she was cool, and her name was Stevie, which is like, come on, give me a break. Your name is Stevie. That's a cool name too. That's a rock star name. And I wanted him to do like kind of a subtle movement in her to feel carefree, throwing her hands in the air. And all I did, because we're in our flow state, right, is I said, I just want you to put your head down like this to the man, and I just want you to rub your hair. Humans are never still. Keep your couples moving, okay? If you want those cinematic feelings, you need to direct a movement. And for her, I had her throw her hands in the air, and I said, I quite literally want you to shake your hair, and I just want you to imagine you're listening to your favorite band, and you're in the crowd, and you're feeling the energy, and you're feeling like this is the most amazing moment of your entire life. Yes, I am not dramatic when I talk to my couples, because when you're in this state of surrender, they're like, yes, let's go for it. And it also makes them feel so, so special. That's something I want like to give my couples. I want to give them that space that like, I'm only thinking about you guys in this moment, and it feels like we're creating something really cool together, like it's a collaborative thing. So this is the soul of the photos and the power of play. And that might sound a little cheesy, and I'm okay with that. But we got into photography because, like little baby Chloe singing, I had creativity in my very DNA, and it just needed to get out, right? All of us sitting here, we didn't pick up our cameras because we were so technical. No, we had to learn the technical side so that we could support the vision in our head. And that is so, so cool. So the next few slides I'm going to show you are examples of when I took a risk at a shoot and I decided I was going to play a little bit, and I didn't know exactly how that might turn out and how that shaped future sessions. So I took this in my old apartment, and it was a very old apartment, concrete floors, and they originally had like some black clothing. We were going to do like candlelight, and it was looking a little witchy. And he's like, I have a full body sleeve. I'm like, well, that's cool, because when he took off his shirt, it actually looks like he's fully clothed. And to me, that was very interesting. So finding the line, finding the boundary, I definitely asked them if they were okay with implied nudity. Implied nudity is we're not showing anything, right? We're being very respectful. And I took it from like a bird's eye angle with a 24 millimeter. And originally, I had just lit the candles on their faces. And the apartment was dark, so what that caused is quite a bit of just dark shadows, and it wasn't highlighting her amazing red hair. So everywhere that I wanted to highlight, just like if you're adding in a strobe with a grid, right? I just placed a candle, and you can see where it's highlighting exactly what I want it to and exactly what I don't want it to. Which inspired me for this. I was live teaching at another photo conference, and we were in a really cool venue, and it was supposed to be a styled wedding shoot, because I shoot a lot of weddings as well. And it was getting dark, and we were inside the chapel, and there was another photographer outside also running. What happens? You don't want to step on each other's toes. Now, I'm very okay with shooting dark and moody, but I was like, we have no light, and this is not a strobe, this is natural light. Okay, what are we gonna do? This wonderful lady that owned the venue, she's like, I have a bunch of prayer candles. I'm like, bring them, let's go. So because I had done that before, because I had taken that risk and played before, I was able to just place these candles exactly where I wanted the viewer to look. This image was at the end of a family photo shoot, and we had lost the kids' interest, and I always let them just go do whatever. And I like to end with the parents, because that puts them in like a nostalgic, loving mood instead of feeling that chaos of having a family session. Like, let's end on a good note, right? And she was very shy, and I said, and he's a guitarist, and I said, I want you to play guitar, and I want you to twirl your dress and dance. And, she looked at me and she said, no. She said no. I was like, oh. And when someone tells you no, and I don't get a lot of no when I'm in my flow state, right? But you have to respect that boundary, right? Because I don't want to lose the entire session. And when she had said no, I saw that I could see her left shoulder in his guitar, and I was like, okay, what I want you to do is come really close, and I want you to lift your guitar until I can see your face in that guitar. And we were able to get an image that felt much more like her, more subdued. And we get that beautiful reflection staring back at us. And because of that shot, I was able to do this at a wedding in 5 minutes when we had absolutely like zero time. And this couple trusted me. And all I had him do was pull her in. I just wanted the implied thing. It's still a double portrait. She's still in that photo technically. But I wanted that focus to be on him because, man, why do grooms, they always say, oh, it's all about the bride. I disagree. It's all about the couple. It's all about the family. It's all about the friendships there, right? So I love this image because we're getting a little focus on the groom, which I feel like we don't often get. Another reflection, and another time I was teaching at a workshop, a private workshop, and we had done all the things, and I still had about 30 minutes, and I was like, sometimes when you're live demoing things, you're like, I'm out of ideas, right? And the pressure's on, everyone's staring at you, and I saw the reflection, and I'm like, okay, if I take this with my 70 to 200 across the pool, I'm gonna get that compression so I can see that tree. And I just kind of moved my body around until I got that composition I wanted, and they were just standing there. So how can I add composition to a silhouette, right? Have them reach for each other, have some sort of connection. And I just absolutely, I love a lot of the photos from this session, but this one really just sticks out because I took a risk. I tried something live. And if I hadn't done those other reflection shots, I don't know that I would have thought to do this. Another reflection shot, this couple, they're a lovely couple. They told me they go to this bar, and it's in a bowling alley. And I was like, oh, I don't see the vision, but okay. And they're like, no, we want to dress up like we just got back from an event, and then we want to be photographed at the bar bowling alley. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And so I showed up, and it was so fun, and it was such a vibe. I loved the juxtaposition of her gorgeous dress. That was her mom's prom dress, I think, which is incredible. And I saw these neon lights, and initially I wanted to take it straight on for some reason. I just, But then looking into the bowling alley was this window, and I thought, if I just rotate my body and shoot right on that glass, I'm going to be able to get kind of this cool double exposure look. And so I placed them right next to that neon sign so that red glow just hit both of their faces. And the way he's posed, leaning in, ensures that his face is also getting lit up. And I just had him wrap her up and hug her. And I'm like, I want this to feel very sensual, very comforting, like end of a long night. And again, if I hadn't taken a risk earlier, I would have absolutely never thought to do this. And this is me playing at a paid session. This was at a conference. All I had was an attendee grab the bottom of the blackout curtain so tight so it created a very straight line. If I didn't have her do that, wherever she is now, thank you, it's one of my favorite images, I wouldn't have had that straight line there. I placed her in the shadow, him in the highlight, exposed for the highlight on her face, causing him to be a silhouette. This is a very simple image. You can do this with strobe. You can do this with a flashlight. I mean, you can do this with any kind of light. You just have to know how to do it. And I have done many iterations of that same photo that I took maybe 10 years ago. This was with 2 V-flats. I had a continuous light shining down, and we sprayed so much fog. They're in the middle. On this one, this is, again, with 2 tight curtains pulled really tight with natural light shining through, and this time a different iteration, them both in the black, so you can see the highlight on their face. This is actually that shy guy from earlier, and I love this story because I was really sweating bullets here. I had bought a projector the day before because I initially thought that I really wanted to project these beautiful scenes on their body. She was wearing a bodysuit and he was shirtless, and I was like, that would be really cool. But when the menu sign, the one that never quite hits the corner, that's what we were seeing. And I am not a techie person. I could not get that to work for the life of me. I tried and tried and tried. I knew they were getting hungry. I had 2 people doing a mentoring session. They were about ready to dip. And I said, let's try something different. So I just spun it around, and you can see there's different variations of color there. That's from that little menu thing just going around. All I did was spray a little atmosphere aerosol to kind of catch those rays of light. He's sitting on the edge of a bed, and she's straddling him. And I wanted it to feel like she was taking off her shirt sexily. And I told her, I said, I want you to look down at him. If her chin was any lower, we would lose that beautiful profile. Without that one little piece of hair that silhouette wouldn't have told the complete story of who this is. And I absolutely love this. And I have played several times over and over again at different shoots with projectors, with flashlights, with strobe. You can do this with any kind of light. You can also do it this way, where it's coming from above, and you take, this is taken with a projection mount with a continuous light, and I believe this was with my 35 millimeter. Just a really simple portrait. One light, turn off all the lights, continuous light, spray a little fog. You can see exactly where the light falls. When the light's coming from up there, just have him tilt his chin slightly up, and her face is up like this, and just add a little connection there. There's just so many things you can do when you play with light. And unfortunately, we are at the end. I could talk about this forever. You guys have been incredible. Thank you so much, Nikon, for having me out. Thank you, thank you, thank you.